when I meet people, when you get the chance to talk to people when they're in, I just explain. We got fed up with Labour and Tory. We couldn't trust either of them, so we set up our own party, Lewisham People Before Profit. Then I remind people of the things we did. We set up something called the Carnival Against Cuts. It actually happened in 2011. It was the largest march Lewisham had seen for 30 years, and it was directly challenging Cameron and Clegg's austerity agenda. Then, as a culmination of that Carnival Against Cuts, we occupied New Cross Library because the mayor was trying to close down 5 libraries. Just a one-night thing, but it's the thing that made the news all over Britain. Lots of libraries had campaigns, but only New Cross occupied. And we managed to persuade the mayor to not close the libraries down completely, but to keep them operated by volunteers. The big thing we got involved in with it after that was housing, when we occupied 5 houses that the mayor was trying to sell off cheaply at auction. We squatted them. We got in while they were open for viewing for people who might like to buy them. We put loads of leaflets out, 20,000 leaflets out about what we'd done, pointing out that it was much more sense to renovate those houses and give them to families on the waiting list who would then be paying rent. We wouldn't be having to pay, we as a population, Lewisham, wouldn't be having to pay their hotel bills for somewhere to live. And the mayor changed his mind. That is the mature thing in politics, isn't it? So much of the politics we see, if you watch television, I must confess I don't, but in Parliament, is the Yardie who sucks, Tweedledum, Tweedledee, he said this, he said that, they won't change their mind. I don't think the people of Britain want that anymore. They want realistic solutions to the problems that we have. Most of us know what those solutions are, but politicians are unwilling to deliver them.
I've worked in Lewisham, as you know, 15 years. You could only imagine the amount of young people that have had to go and see their family after trying to preserve their life, and they've ended up dead, and then the person that's killed them, I know that family as well. And you look at a lot of it, you think this could have been prevented. Why I initially actually got involved with all of this was an 8-year-old Joel Urey. His brother was a smart young man. The teacher got bored, and then he started messing about. Before you knew it, he was sent to a people referral unit called Abbey Manor. From there, he was then groomed into gangs. And then the police then wanted him to give up his gang masters, which he refused to do. And he then refused to cooperate with the police. The mum went in 2 days before, pleaded for help after her son was stabbed and then shot. And just, if we focus on him being stabbed in the first place, he went home bleeding in his house. The armed police came with their guns, found him bleeding. The process normally is, once something like that happens, you provide the family with a fireproof letterbox, treat all calls to the address as urgent, and you also give them a panic alarm. So if someone comes to the house, they can pull the panic alarm and the police will come. But because the brother refused to give information, none of that was installed, none of that was in place. Yeah? So simple things as a fireproof letterbox and a panic alarm, and treat all calls as urgent. So 2 weeks after that, the same people that stabbed him saw him, tried to shoot at him. He escaped and went to live with family members. The mum then went into the probation office and pleaded with her young son, Joe, 8 years old, in the corner on his iPad, please, we need some support. They sent the mum at the fire exit, clearly showing that they knew there was a level of risk why they allowed the mum to leave through the fire exit. 2 days after, young Joe burns to death in his bed. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back for me. And that's when I knew I couldn't sit around any longer within a local authority where they think it's acceptable for 8-year-olds to be burning in their bed. For the 15 years I was working with Lewisham Council, I've seen men, women die over the years, but never a young baby like that. And it comes a time when enough's enough. And that's when I decided that someone needs to speak out against the corruption and the injustice within Lewisham Council. And that was the start of my journey.
private finance initiative, the very thing that brought Lewisham Hospital almost to being closed down because of the Labour Party's building a hospital by PFI. PFI has been used by Steve Bullock, the previous mayor, for all the new schools, Brockley housing, maintenance, and the street lighting contract with Skanska. PFI is like borrowing money from a loan shark. Instead of paying for it at the low interest money available from the Municipal Loans Board, they get bankers to build a school or a hospital or to finance it with the promise that you only have to pay us 30 million a year. Well, it'll be 35 the next year, 37 the year after, etc., for 30 years. And you've ended up paying 10 times as much often as you would have paid for the facility in the first place. And not only that, you talk to teachers in some of Lewisham's schools, they're not allowed to pin things onto the wall because the building doesn't belong to the council, it belongs to the PFI company. And if they put a drawing pin in a wall, they will be charged for someone to come in and mend it. They have to pay the PFI company to change the light path. They didn't have a caretaker with a normal job of looking after the building. It's all about money. And Labour has been much, much worse than the Tories on this. We as Lewisham People Before Profit present an alternative attitude to public services. We're completely against privatising public services, completely against the farming out of jobs to private firms. We've seen this all over Lewisham, haven't we? Glendale does the parks. It used to be Scholar Rest doing the school meals. I'm not sure who it is now. There's this firm called Mediquip. We pay them £1 million a year to go around to people's houses and pick up the crutches that they don't need anymore because they were given them by the NHS. It just sounds like a way of giving our money to their friends.
Will you be voting for not to cut?
No, we wouldn't be at all in favour of public service cuts, of course. Lewisham People Before Profit has been against all cuts. The only cut I'll be in favour of is the mayor's salary. Whenever I've stood as mayor, I've said I would do the job for the average wage in Lewisham, which is about £27,000, and that's our policy, that the mayor's salary should be reduced. I mean, our policy is also that we want to abolish the post of mayor, but while there is a mayor, we would want that only to be paid the average pay for people in Lewisham. We also have a policy. We said nobody should be paid more than £80,000 a year. I mean, £80,000 is an awful lot. And we calculated that we would have been able to save enough money to not have any of the cuts. It was about 4 years ago, if pay was capped at £80,000 a year and consultants were dropped. Because, as we've said for a long time, Lewisham Council spends about £6 or £7 million on consultants' fees, which is a way of kind of giving money to their friends once again, I would say, in many cases, instead of employing someone at a wage. We're very distrusting of the way money goes on consultants.
Working in Lewisham for 15 years, I got to know the MPs, I got to know the councillors, I got to know the chief executive. I was first working with Lewisham at a senior level where I was supplying the council with one-bedroom, self-contained flats to help the gang members and young vulnerable people escape a life of crime. I've seen what John's just explained, where we had people coming in where their friends would bring them into the council. I remember one time there was a guy came in, they paid him over £100,000 to deliver trauma training. And I attended the trauma training and I said, you've just Googled this off the internet. Where is the trauma training that you've actually done yourself instead of reading something that's off the internet? And they then brought him back in to do like a follow-up, a booster of the trauma training. So that's 100,000 plus for the initial training, and we would never know what they paid him to do the follow-up training. And they called it trauma training for the community. There was no community members invited into this training. It was just the council staff being trained. We then had a state where the council started buying all these cars. They leased at least 10 to 15 cars. And we had the workers driving around in these cars free petrol and everything else. Then they then said, oh, we've got lots of money here. Let's buy all the council staff iPads. So they then went out, all the council staff got iPads. This is in 2017. Then they said, oh, some people need iPhones. So then all the council staff then got iPhones. So I looked at that and I said to myself, how much money has Lewisham Council got where they have decided to provide brand new iPads and iPhones and all of these leased cars to members of staff? It's as if there was a bottomless pit of money. Well averse with the young people, second largest population of young people in London after Croydon. My thing is this, the first thing I want to look at when it comes to young people is to reduce the levels of exclusion, where Lewisham had the highest levels of exclusion and then incarceration rate. Because when you look at the young people that are getting killed on our streets or being fast-tracked into the criminal justice system, it's the same young people that are being excluded from school. A large majority of these young people have been diagnosed with some forms of special needs, and they might have the medication. Most of them will have been given medication, a variety of medication, but they would not have the EHCP plan, which they struggle to get from Kaleidoscope, which will then give the young people the protection they need and also support them to gain access to funds, which will open them up to other positive activity, whether it's going out to do some sort of sports, go to the gym, go out and do positive stuff, which will actually divert them from crime and other negative things. It's about making sure that we've got a tracking system in place to track the young people as they're being excluded and offer them an alternative. As I was in New Cross yesterday, I saw a building there. It's been empty for years, to the point where it's got mold on the floor. I will be asking the council, it's a council building, why can't we turn that into a youth provision where young people could come and get the support that they need, learn about entrepreneurship? Because even the ones that are out there already endorsed in drug dealing, they have got transferable skills where we could pull them back in and teach them things that will match the excitement that they're getting out there, and teach them a trade or get them into a company where they could go and shadow someone, whether it's in the stock market, now the country's open back up, or demand that all of these contractors that are building these massive skyscrapers, once we could get the young people their CSCS card, to take the young people on so they could go make some money, so they're not then tempted to go out there and commit crime. So that is my pledge for the young people immediately as I get in there, is to make sure that I go and find out about this building and start communicating with young people on their platform, whether it's Snapchat, Instagram, and Facebook or Twitter, wherever they are. We communicate with them and let them know we are here to support you. You don't have to suffer in silence, because no counsellor in Lewisham currently actually talks to these young people.
Gwenton has a lot of knowledge about youngsters who are led into crime and gangs, but of course lots of youngsters aren't led into crime and gangs. And one of the first people I met when I was in Bellingham, I was just on the street, gave my leaflet. The young man said, "So what would you want to do for me?" Our policy for People Before Profit is that we should be having manufacturing jobs here in Lewisham. Shouldn't just be about commuting up to London or some kind of service industry. You know, one of the things we've suggested is that there should be a factory set up in Lewisham to make solar panels. Most houses are going to need one in the next 10 years. There's not a single factory in Britain making air source heat pumps. This is a skilled job, you know, it would provide skilled jobs for hundreds of people. Some of them would be youngsters. We'd need training at Lewisham College or elsewhere. But, you know, that can be done here in Lewisham if we have the right attitude from our mayor and councillors and officers. They're not putting the climate at the forefront when many, many young people and old people throughout our borough realise that that's one of the things we should be using to get ourselves back into manufacturing, as well as saving a funds at the same time. People Before Profit has been talking about green agenda for a long time. We suggested getting the tram extended from Beckenham Junction to Grove Park. That's an electric vehicle, of course, to improve public transport facilities through the borough. We're in favour of cycle lanes, dedicated cycle lanes on the main roads, so that it's safer for people to get about in a clean and healthy way. And what the Lewisham Council did with that £100,000 that they were given by the government to improve cycling and pedestrians during COVID was just to block off a load of roads with flowers in boxes and bring in their LTN in Lee Green. Some people think that's a green measure. We're not convinced. It just seems to me that people have to drive a longer way round, making more pollution, and we all know what happened to Rosamund's daughter Ella when she died of asthma on that, or very close to that busy South Circular. She's not a fan of the LTN at all. We've got a scheme whereby people could be helped to install clean and green energy systems without having to pay any more than they're currently paying, because our suggestion is that the council should make an interest-free loan to people to have heat pumps installed, and they would pay it back gradually over the coming period and not have to pay any more than they're currently paying for their energy.
The manifesto is fantastic, especially around housing. As you know, I'm a housing campaigner, so you know that's very dear to me. And I know it's going a bit further in regards to you're going to be running where you're running. It's not you won't be able to have that much influence in this particular part of Deptford, which is Convoy's Wharf, where it's what they're building now, and it's not for. I can't remember, I think it's maybe about 10%, if that, or 6% of housing, social housing, for people that actually need it, that needs it. So there's going to be literally no dent in the Lewisham housing register. And as you know, again, they are cleaning the housing register again with Lewisham Homes. How they literally going to be taking off quite a few names off of the housing register, which I've campaigned for as well. In regards to social cleansing that. So you've got a lot of work to do. You have got a lot of work to do. All we can do is support you as a community and make sure that we offer that scrutiny as well.
I will just say that it's about looking at what the policies are for people in your area. What are they going to do for your community that resonates with you? And even if you're still not sure, then just vote for somebody, but don't vote for Labour. Don't let your vote be wasted, is all that I have to say.
I hope that the people of Bellingham, New Cross and Sydenham have had enough of that and want to put an alternative rebel voice, or preferably 3 alternative rebel voices, onto the council this Thursday when they have a chance to vote for Mike in Sydenham, Gwenton in New Cross and for me in Bellingham.